Hello, hello, and welcome to U Media Chicago's Speak On It, a series of author talks virtually connecting teams to successful writers for conversations about books, creativity, and more. I am Alex, your friendly neighborhood teen librarian, and I am so excited to welcome our guest today. Lauren Oliver is the New York Times bestselling author of YA novels Before I Fall, Vanishing Girls, Panic, and the Delirium trilogy, among others. She's also the co-founder of media and content development company Glasstown Entertainment, where she serves as the president of production. She is a graduate of the University of Chicago, yay Chicago, and NYU's MFA program. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yay. So before we get started, I just wanted to say that those who are watching live, we want your questions too. So go ahead and put them in the YouTube chat and we will make sure to ask them. So let's start at the beginning, Lauren. When did you start writing?
I don't remember ever kind of not writing. I do want to clarify I wasn't a good writer. I think that's really important for people to know. Like, I was actually really horrified when I was comparing first grade stories that I wrote to my husband's, who, by the way, hates writing and reading. Anyway, his was genius. Mine was hard, unpredictable. But, I think, really, my parents are both English professors. And I was so lucky to grow up in a home full of books. And also the library, we actually, some of my earliest memories were of going on half days, which must have meant I was in kindergarten, to the library and getting to select books. So I was a huge reader, and I started writing. Literally, I didn't really distinguish the activity from reading. The way that I started writing was that I would finish a book that I loved, and I was so sad that I just started writing. I mean, it was fan fiction, basically. I just started writing continuation of the stories. So that's how I started. So, I think I do remember completing my first novel. It was like 16 handwritten pages in fifth grade. And not only did I complete it, I gave myself a blurb from the New York Times on the cover.
Love it.
It was very positive, by the way. It was poignant. Yeah.
Excellent. As well it should be. I mean, that's a lot of handwritten pages. I mean,
exactly.
Age,
yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's amazing that I knew, like, that just speaks to how kind of geeky my household was, that I even knew about blurbs on covers. You know what I mean? Enough to give myself a glowing review. It was, by the way, a complete Laura Ingalls ripoff. I mean, 100%. So.
Well, I feel like I've seen, now I can't think of like who it was, but that's an important part of finding your voice is in imitating the things that you love. And then the more you do it, then the more, it becomes more yours.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, first of all, one of the things that's true, I mean, people are different. The other thing is people are very different. Some people really, really are drawn to a particular category from the beginning. For me, I have a real diversity of reading habits and different genres. And one of the things that was true of doing that, and I think that that's, again, just a natural outgrowth of people who love stories, is that, you're experimenting all across the board. I mean, that was a Laura Ingalls ripoff. I totally wrote so many, like, Wind in the Willows fan fiction, Redwall, and later on growing up, trying to emulate Tolkien. Like, so I think, the parallel is when you're talking about finding your voice, it's obviously a very easy metaphor for what we do growing up identity-wise too. We experiment with and shed and try to find, the authentic selfhood, change our hair color, sometimes change our friends, but change our wardrobes. And that's just part of kind of exploring. And I really love, by the way, Wattpad for that reason. I think that you see a lot of that, a lot of young people doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wattpad is, the way Wattpad has taken off is really interesting. And like now there are even
I have to move. My internet connection just froze you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's interesting that now, like, there are Wattpad.
This is what happens. Yeah.
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good. I can hear you. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. So we have we have a reader question. Raphael asks, Delirium will be 10 years in 2021. Can we expect something, a new book, short stories, or anything in celebration?
Well, that is it's true. I mean, I would at some point probably love to adapt it or try to adapt it for a film. It's very that doesn't guarantee anything, of course, that it would ever make it. But I do think that given new avenues and, a lot of new buyers and streamers, and I think that's the only way that I would return to the world, but it is something that I would like to do at some point.
Um, well, and that kind of leads us into your, because in addition to being a novelist, you also work in the TV and film industry,
Mhm.
which I think is so interesting. Were you doing that before you were writing novels, or like did writing novels come first and then this is come second, or like how did that all kind of play out?
Oh, no, yeah,
Oh no.
heels came first. I mean, don't forget, partly it was, um, oh no, are we
Okay.
I
Technical difficulties.
of course, it's okay.
Okay. Okay. Technical difficulties, hopefully
Yeah,
resolved. Computers.
now I have
Um,
creepy dramatic lighting. Yeah.
yes, love it. So we were talking about that you're
Mhm.
also a screenwriter and working in the TV and film industry. And like, so how do these two things kind of happen? Was one before the other? Were they all happening simultaneously?
Yeah, no, I mean, it took a really I mean, so I my first love will always be writing novels,
Mm,
but increasingly as I got older, I felt that my interests kind of shifted a little bit. So I'm working on a novel now. I love it, but I'm much slower than I used to be.
mm,
And so, and I really enjoy like research and things that otherwise had impatience for when I was younger. I like to spend more time and almost like had wanted it to return to having more freedom to do that. Because obviously, if you're supporting yourself surely by writing novels, then, when the bills are due, you got to turn it in.
yep.
So, but also, I actually the film and TV came more from, with Glasstown, we're still very new. We're only 2 years old on that side. But I had for years, first of all, we were very frustrated by just working so hard with our authors and on the books, and then kind of like giving them to people, agents, having no control of what happened. I did have one adaptation of one of my works, which thankfully never made it to air, that I was really kind of shocked by when I saw it. And I had no, in retrospect, like no participation at all. I don't think I'd ever read even a script. And that was even for one of my books. And also Glasstown really, I mean, we were speaking about this before our chat began, like a lot of the same skill set, which is really focused on narrative structure, and how to build the scaffolding of a story. It really applies to film and TV. So it was relatively recently that I started doing that. But they are very, very different kinds of writing. And interestingly, after writing a season of Panic, I was so engrossed in it. I literally this summer, when I returned to this novel, I had forgotten how to write a novel. I mean, I literally had forgotten how to write a novel, which is so obnoxious. I mean, writing's so hard. You shouldn't be able to write 20 novels, then take 6 months away and forget how to do it. But I really had. It took me about 3 months and I had written 60,000 words. I had to throw all of them out, every single one. So, but yeah, they really pull on different skill sets. And honestly, I mean, again, talking about where I started as a writer, I remember when I was a kid at a certain point thinking I wished, like, it was such a weird ambition that I wanted to write one of every different kind of genre. I don't know, I mean, like a mystery of this. So I am just continuously fascinated by the mechanism of different kinds of stories, you know?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because like on some level they're also different, and then also on some level they're the like
Yeah.
story in whatever
Yeah,
form.
exactly. Right. And the heart and the character and all of those things. But I mean, it's amazing how long you can be a writer and feel constantly inept at every, you know what I mean? Because I think you're always trying to do something a little bit maybe different or harder. I always feel that I'm trying to write something that's a little bit above my pay grade. So
Mhm.
failing a little bit.
What was it like adapting your own book into this totally different
Yeah. Yeah.
medium?
Well, I mean, there are so many answers to that question. One is in a way, like it's amazing to adapt your own stuff because I'm super free about adapting my own stuff. I mean, when you adapt somebody else's stuff, you have to, of course, be very respectful of everything and every choice they made. A lot of times, I mean, the mediums are different. They have different tool sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just as if you were translating the kind of a painting into a sculpture, it would really, the elements that you chose to pull out or whatever would be very vastly different. Doing that with your own work is fine because nobody's there to get mad at you. That said, I mean, there were so many things that were um, fascinating to me. I think the biggest thing that I totally had radically underestimated, and I loved this ultimately, but it was a shock, is that, part of the tool set of this is going to sound so stupid when I say it, but the tool set of screenwriting includes live human beings, right? It's the actors.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, think of it as like that is like literally like the palette of colors. In other words, and you see things, and people had said this to me before and it just sounded kind of like hokey, but truly you find people and see things in how they interpret, characters even on auditions that literally drastically change your own mental conception. So one of the characters in Panic in the book and originally in the TV series, who I'd said like every character has dimension and depth except for this one guy, he's just the worst, right? Then we got this actor, and I knew it had to be him on the one hand. And at the same time, I was like, nobody will ever believe, like, you can believe he's a dick, but I was like, nobody will ever want that guy to be evil. Like, I didn't want it. And it literally changed the entire plot was based on him being evil. And then I had
Mm-hmm.
to change that. So that was really fascinating. Um, yeah. And I mean, again, it's kind of fun because you have to do so much other stuff. I mean, there's so much space in a TV season, right? So even though the basic narrative follows, one the main characters as they play the game, um, you get to explore just richly relationships and other characters in a way that you otherwise don't. So it didn't even strike me as adapting at a certain point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's so fascinated.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I'm so interested by that.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more viewer questions. So Kat asks, will there be a fourth book of Delirium?
You guys.
Everyone has Delirium questions
I know,
today.
I know. It's so sweet. I love that. I love how much it means to people. You know, I was, as I said, I mean, I think that I do have an ambition to adapt it into a film. There's a lot of stuff that, I wrote Delirium when I was pretty young. And I think I've grown and changed as a writer. I don't think I would ever do a fourth book of Delirium. I'm sorry. Although if I ever return to that world, like I said, if I could find a way where it was from a radically different angle, right? Like, or a different time period or jumping ahead, maybe. I have to really feel that there's a reason and that I have something to say. And I am really proud of, some of the messages in those books I think are super topical, especially right now. And so I am, for now, proud of kind of how it exists as a whole. I know people hate the ending of the third book. I don't know what to tell you. I still defend it. I still defend it. Yeah.
When it's that thing where like it's like we're supposed to want more, but
Yeah.
I think we see often in like television shows that run like 2 seasons too long, or
Yeah.
things that go on too long. It's like, so it's that, knowing that you want something, but also
Well, and I think
it's
too,
good
it's
like it is.
totally true. I mean, as I said, that's kind of why I started writing that way because I liked, and so in a way, I guess I feel I like things that have a little bit of an open door. I think the other thing is too, and people feel differently about this. I feel that, fiction should tell the truth as much as possible.
Mhm.
And the truth as I experience it is that, first of all, until you're dead, there's no ending, happy or not, right? But that, like, most of my books ultimately say kind of the same thing. And even Panic, the series does, which is like, it's okay, right? Like, it's okay and you're okay. And things will be okay. It's not clear how, it's not related to external circumstances, right?
Mhm.
But as long as you have kind of healed the sense that you're broken and that's it, then like it's all right. You can move forward. You'll find the person, you'll find several people, you know what I mean? Like, so I think
Mhm.
that that is something that I'm committed to because I have trouble doing books that drive towards a central conclusion where the action itself is what makes the heroine okay. Because life is full of reversals, full of, tragedies and traumas and whatever. And that's ultimately not the things that define you and make you okay. Right. So I think that that's something I still feel strongly about, specifically when it comes to the end of Delirium. Also, she's like 17 and there's a war going on. I really, from my feminist side, was like, this is not the most important thing in her life. Yeah. Maybe I'll write a Delirium series and she'll just be like, dating it up, going around.
Do it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Raphael asks, of all of your books, which was the most difficult to write and why?
Honestly, every single time I am asked a question, I just think of the last one I wrote. And I think, I actually think the one I'm writing now is the most difficult, probably, but also because I really had forgotten how to write a novel. I mean, I don't think from now on, like now that I'm back in the flow of it. But that was a really disturbing experience for me of just writing every day and not understanding what I was doing and not being able to kind of find the heart of it. Um, I mean, they're different for different reasons. I mean, some of them were formally different and difficult, like in other words, challenges, like with Replica, where I set it up to be read a million different ways for no apparent reason. And some of them were more emotionally difficult. And let me put it this way. There are some writers. I have one friend, she's incredibly successful, Rebecca Sorrell. She's like, writing is the easiest thing in the world. She writes her books so quickly. That's great. That has never been my experience, like ever.
Mhm.
So I just want to make that clear as well.
Yeah, like writing can be hard. It is very
Yeah.
difficult.
I think I don't talk to most writers don't seem to have as much trouble. Like I said, I mean, maybe I'm like naturally not very good at it because I have to edit and throw out so many words. I mean, again, the good news is you can just do that until you're pleased. It's a very inefficient job, but it's like, I literally have never, it's the strangest thing that I have a tolerance and a love for doing something that I experience daily as being almost impossible.
I mean, I feel like that's the only way to, to do something that big, like writing a novel. It's such a huge undertaking. Like it's so many
Yeah.
pages, it's so many words, and it's like
Yeah.
you just have to sit down every
Yep.
day.
Yeah, there's a great book by Anne Lamott about writing called Bird by Bird. Yeah. And it's about that. I mean, my father, who also he's a nonfiction author, but he taught me that when I was young. He writes a page a day. And there were days he said he would sit down and just be like, all right, if you can only get 200 words, just really coax himself through that. I mean, absolutely. It's the same way of like running a marathon. If you're not trained to run a marathon, the idea of running 26 miles, it's outrageous. I mean, it's like not even physically possible, but it's mile by mile, and even when you're a marathon runner, which my sister is, I'm not, but that's still how she actually thinks of it. They don't go thinking I'm going to be running 26 miles,
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that also applies to, so many things, building, creating a new company, like,
Yes.
I'm sure
Yeah,
that
absolutely. And
seeing
that's critical. Yeah. Yeah. That's totally true.
Yeah, I'm so curious about this, because you built this company. It's an all-woman company, which I think is awesome. What was that like, that process of like just imagining this thing? I mean, I guess it's like writing a novel, imagining this thing that didn't exist and then like willing it into existence.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I was doing, and we still don't. I mean, we're making huge changes now that are going to make the company a lot better. We're still always trying to figure it out. It's funny. It's like, I think I'm just coming to realize I'm the kind of person who is always going to be putting myself in situations where I am tackling something too big for me. It's like a personality thing. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like I realized a long time ago. I was like, it doesn't matter how much money I ever make because I will always be broke. Like I just like don't, you know what I mean? Like I just like I just kind of go like this and still have to take, I always say, like, I always thought being rich was like you could keep your eyes open when you take money out from an ATM. You know what I mean? And not see the bank
Uh-huh.
balance. And so um I think that, Einstein has a great quote about success, which is like you need ignorance and confidence. And obviously, you do have to have this kind of curiosity and willingness to learn. But the nice thing about doing something like starting a company or writing a novel is that those things don't exist. That's not the actual activity. When you start a company, what you're doing is you sit down with your friend who wants to start the company and you say like, okay, what do we like literally need to do today? Right? It's just a day by day thing. It gets broken up, like we said, like bird by bird into, and then when you don't know, right? If we're like, do we need to file paperwork, right? With somebody, then we asked. And so then on our to-do list that day would say, ask about whether we need to file paperwork. You know what I mean? But anybody can ask about whether you need to file paperwork. Anybody can determine then the next day a name or pay $25 for that registration fee. I mean, not everybody has $25, but you know what I mean generally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really important thing too. I mean, I think that another one of my favorite quotes is that you should never be afraid of doing anything that takes a lot of time because the time is going to pass anyway. And I think that that's an
Mm-hmm.
important kind of message. But yeah, I mean, there have been, look, it's incredibly gratifying. I'm really happy about the changes we're making now and the opportunity to grow it even more. I'm really happy about the next kind of generation of stuff we want to do, which is be able to move some of our novelists into adapting their own stuff, which will be really cool because we're doing that already with one person, but they are not usually given that chance, to break in. And so I think, but yeah, it's still hard. I mean, everything I do is like really just not easy for me. Maybe it would be easy for somebody else, but it's what I love. Maybe I'm the wrong person for the job, but I like to do it. Yeah.
Life would get boring if you
Yeah,
were just if
exactly.
everything was like,
Yeah.
oh, whatever. It would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, couple more. viewer questions. What do you think Alex and Lena are doing right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, probably shaking their heads at like our political fracturization in this country. Um, First of all, way to trick me into answering whether she ends up with him, not biting. Um, you know, I like to think that they are, God, it's been 10 years. So, she's led the country and the world towards a much more equitable and feeling and liberated place. And, I would say they're definitely at least friends or more, but they're still only 28. I didn't meet my husband until I was 30. So, they might still be caught in that little cycle. You never know.
Mhm. There is that, I mean, I love YA with all my heart, but there is that, like, the person you meet in high school, probably not actually going to be the person you marry.
Yeah,
Promise.
and you know what? And
Promise.
it's amazing if it is, but also it's amazing if it isn't. There's
Yes.
beautiful things to both sides. And again, I mean, I think one of the things that worries me about that modality is the message being that it's wrong and bad to
Mhm.
ever get your heart broken, like to ever have to have that kind of thing happen to you. That, like, again, the avoidance of pain gets enshrined in a way that I don't think that it should be as a society, right? Like, people,
Mhm.
it's okay, as we were just saying, it's okay to do hard things. Um,
Yeah.
and and it can absolutely deepen and expand the joys that come afterwards. So because otherwise it's like you're also enshrining the idea that, you know, otherwise that you should be afraid. You know what I mean? Otherwise you become too afraid and then you close off from people and then you don't experience love. So I mean, that's what's at the end of Requiem too, is the idea that you have to, take down the walls, not just literally, but metaphorically, and just keep tolerating and standing and moving towards it and trusting that no matter
Mhm.
what comes, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you'll be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Another viewer question, can we expect an adaptation of Vanishing Girls?
I would like that. I think that we are really I'm really focused right now on trying to, like I said, because I have panic and, hopefully it will do well and will be good for season 2, and then I probably would do an adaptation of Delirium if I were going to do one of my own books. I'm really focused truly on trying to we have a first look deal at Amazon, and we have 2 of our Glasstown projects set up there for TV, and we would really love to get more of our authors and their works adapted. So that's kind of the focus right now. I mean, it's been such a thrill and so amazing that I even have panic. So I don't want to hog my own energy. Especially because, again, we are very proud that one of our authors was able to, she had to download the script software, but she was hired by Amazon to do her own adaptation, and that was really, really exciting.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
So when you start a new project, like novel or original
Mhm.
scripting, what tends to be the first thing that comes? Like, is it premise or plot or character? Or...
So the way that I know the difference between things that I write and things that are glass down is that in one case basically it could be, if I'm writing it, I get a voice in my head.
Mhm.
Um, if I'm not, it could be any number of things. An idea, a kind of area, an idea, oh, this character's kind of cool, historical inspiration. Like, it could come from any of those places. If it's something that I end up writing, or having at least the passion to finish, because I've actually started, I mean, I start things all the time and let them go. Like, literally all the time. So that usually happens to be some kind of a voice. I mean, what happened to me this summer has never happened to me before, in that it was literally only a voice. Like, I had no idea what was going on and where we were. It was actually disturbing. I was like, who is this? What are we in hell? Like, and it actually was. I was like, what's going on? So normally it's like there's more of a context, right? Some vague or nebulous idea or area I've been toying, but yeah, then just a speaking. And then usually what happens is that lasts for about, I kind of follow the thread for 6 to 10,000 words. And then I realize I really have no idea what's going on. So I step back and look at the story overall. But again, I mean, like this summer, that's not what happened at all. I wrote 60,000 words. A lot of people publish novels of that length, and they had to just be chucked out. I mean, that was kind of heartbreaking because there were amazing scenes in there. There were amazing things that I loved. They just weren't part of the book. I mean, it was just like finding my way to the book.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few minutes left. So I have two more questions for you. What advice would you give, particularly to young women right now, who are interested in being novelists and or working in starting their own companies, working in
Yeah.
the film industry?
I mean, I guess what I would say is, I mean, it's so hard, right? Because it's so hard and scary. Just know that, you know, it's not like anybody ever says, you hear this again and again. Just because nobody's told you it should be you or you can do it, that is literally irrelevant to whether you can and cannot. Whether you can and cannot, work plus time, right? And dedication, that equals success, right? I can't say, you can't ever say what level of success stratospherically, but over time, the things you work at, you just get very good at. You know what I mean? And the things that you will have the passion to work at that hard are the things you're passionate about. In other words, I would have made a very unsuccessful, you know, person in any other industry. I would be very lazy. I was lazy basically when I worked in other industries, but I'm a really hard worker because I'm passionate about. So nobody has ever said to me that I could do it. A lot of people said I couldn't. And there are times where I can't do it and then I ask for help, right? And that's not a real thing, I guess is what I'm saying. So
Mhm.
women especially have a tendency to ask for permission. And I guess what I would say is, you know, you can expect not to get permission. And you can also just remember, oh, well, that forms the part of every single person's narrative who's ever done it successfully and treat it like that, right?
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, again, just it doesn't all have to be right away, right? It is little by little. And I know that can be frustrating. In America, we love the idea of overnight successes, and social media has done little to assuage that. But there are all different kinds of life paths, and there are all different ways of being, and there are all different points, peaks and valleys and troughs, and then peaks again of successes. And again, you know, really focusing on your life doesn't have to look like or be like or follow anybody's other than yours. That is your mission on this planet, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. Love it. And then my final question is, what books are you pumped about right now?
Well, I mean, this is like the most selfish thing I've ever said. Well, there's a new Lee Bardugo, there's a new
Mm.
Mary Lou, who I love. I'm also super pumped about our book that just came out, Shine, with Jessica Jung. It's a K-pop book. And actually, speaking of voices, I mean, I normally don't plug my own books, but this one's really important to me. And also
Do
the
it.
question, Dylan Farrow wrote her first novel with us, and it's about voice, and it's about a young woman finding her voice and reclaiming her voice. And she has had a personal experiences of being silenced for most of her life by very powerful
Mhm.
men, including her own father, who was Woody Allen. And so that's really meaningful that we were able to support her launch as a novelist because she's always wanted to do that. And yeah, I mean, right now I'm really looking forward to Lee's book and to reading Lou's new book. And I'm also looking around because I'm like, which of my friends have sent me things recently? Um, and so I will say those two.
Yay, awesome, fantastic. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time and spending a little bit of time talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. For those that are watching, we'll be back next time. We'll be back next week at the same time at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And next week we will be chatting with Anne Na, author of A Step from Heaven and The Place Between Breaths. So until then, we'll see you later.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.